Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's discussion with Akton Tamko. We're discussing Game of Thrones Season 5, Episode 9, The Dance of Dragons. This is a book spoiler discussion, so if you haven't read the books, you may not want to be watching this video as we just go all out into spoilers and everything. So with me to discuss Game of Thrones is Akton Tamko. If you want to say hello.
Hello, everyone. This is Akton Tamko.
Okay, so before we get into the crux of the episode, I just want to real quick talk about how, I've been thinking about this episode over the past couple of days, and I'm going to make a bold statement here. And even though I'm not completely certain about this, I would say that this episode is a contender for my all-time favorite episode of the entire series.
Well, that is a bold statement. That is a, and I saw your video when you said that you really loved this scene, and when Meereen, you think it's probably the greatest scene ever, and I think it's a contender. It's hard for me. Like, I love the hard home scene so much. It's just it's hard for me to name one scene right now that's number one. I love the scene too. I thought it was unbelievable. All the other storylines in the episode were not good enough for me to call it like the best of the season, even because I felt last week the secondary storylines were stronger, particularly the Daenerys and Tyrion thing. This week there was nothing wrong with them. I just didn't think that they were as good as the Meereen thing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, particularly Braavos was just, we're setting up for Arya killing Meereen Tran next week, so it's not. But I guess we'll get in more into detail.
I mean, I guess for me, it's mainly just the Meereen and the Stannis stuff together. I mean, that carried the episode. Yeah. And the other supporting storylines, I don't think they were bad. I think they were good, and they helped support the great.
Yeah, I didn't think they were bad. I just didn't think they were good enough to be. And I just didn't think as highly of the Stannis as you did. And you did comparisons to the Red Wedding. I didn't see it like that, but let's not get too much into it. We'll sure. More details when we get to the story.
All right, sure. So I'm going to mostly stick to the order of the events that happen in this show, but since there are two major storylines that everyone's talking about from this episode, what I'm going to do is we're going to start with one of the major ones and we're going to end with the other major one, so it'll be like a sandwich.
So we're going to start with, Stannis.
Yes. Let's just go ahead and jump on in with the Stannis, and let's start our discussion with what we were just talking about before we started recording, and that is the thing that inside the episode they had with Dan and Dave, and one of them, I think it was Dave Benioff. Is that his David Benioff? Yeah, I think it was him who said that, just casually talking about the episode, he was like, oh, when George R.R. Martin first told me about this thing, I was wondering how I was going to write it, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing a bit, but that's basically what he said. So basically, he just gave away that this is a book spoiler.
Yeah, which is, I can't believe he did that. That's freaking huge. Because what they said before was that, well, you don't know when it's material you've never seen before, you don't know if this is a book spoiler or if this is something we made up. And we'd like to keep it that way. That's what I thought was implied. Like they want us to not know. So for him to just come out and say, this is something that is going to happen in the books, I mean, I wonder how George R.R. Martin feels about that. Like, dude, you just ruined my book. What the hell?
Yeah, but there are others who are thinking that maybe it's not a book spoiler. Maybe Martin was somehow involved with the sort of writing process of the show or whatever, and maybe it happens in the books a totally different way. Like maybe Stannis isn't the one that does it. Maybe it's just Selyse or whatever.
Yeah, well, Melisandre's still at the Wall in the books, and if I recall correctly, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Selyse and Shireen are also at the Wall.
Yeah, I think so. I think that is the case.
But Stannis is not. So for something like that to happen in the books, either those characters would have to come together somehow, or it's going to be different, and it's not going to be Stannis who does it.
Yeah, but to me, I kind of hope that it is Stannis because it seems like, I mean, people already were talking about how there's a huge difference between book Stannis and show Stannis, and while I can kind of see their point, I think to me, a lot of people exaggerate the differences between them. They're not as different as some people make them out to be. But if show Stannis burns his daughter at the stake and book Stannis doesn't, then they're like night and day. That's like two totally different characters.
Right. Oh yeah, and yeah, I was about to argue with you there because I thought you were saying that they're totally the same now. But no, before this happened, sure, absolutely, I didn't see a significant difference. But now, yeah, I think show Stannis has really crossed a line that book Stannis has not, maybe not yet. But as far as we know, as far as what we've read, he hasn't crossed that line. And maybe given the opportunity, he would. But who knows if George R. R. Martin is really setting things up to where he will have that opportunity. Right now, as we said, those characters are not in the same location. So who knows if he'll even have that opportunity. So maybe Book Stannis is getting off just by default because he doesn't have the chance to kill his daughter.
Yeah.
But right now, show Stannis is definitely across the line that Book Stannis has not.
Yeah, like I said, I kind of hope that book Stannis does now, just so they're not so drastically different. But you never know because Sansa is drastically different now from her book counterpart. So maybe they could do the same thing with Stannis. But I think for me, like personally, the reason why I may not be as upset about this as other people are is because I had kind of a different opinion of Stannis, and a lot of people seem to me have an unrealistically high opinion of Stannis. I mean, this is by far the worst thing he's done. It definitely lowers my opinion of him, but for me, it's not outside of the realm of possibility because even book Stannis wasn't that good of a guy. I mean, he used he's a bit of a fanatic. He relies on Melisandre, burns people alive. I mean, in the show it's worse, but he still does some questionable things in the book, like kills Renly, kills the dude that storms in, wants to kill Bedrick Storm, I think his name was, and
yeah, Edric Storm. Yeah.
Edric Storm, yeah. So even the books Stannis isn't that great of a guy, but show Stannis definitely burns people alive, and so this isn't that far of a stretch in my mind.
Yeah, to me, this was. I mean, yeah, he's done a lot of horrible things, but I feel like a lot of them. Well, particularly the thing with Renly. There's an argument to be made. This was a war. This was his younger brother trying to, usurp his claim to the throne, his rightful claim to the throne. Stannis has a better claim to the throne than Renly had, and by all rights, by all laws, Renly should have just supported the rightful heir, which was Stannis. So he had a case there, and then Renly refused to do that. So this is war. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of messed up the way he, had Melisandre spit out a shadow baby out of her, vagina, but to go and attack Renly. I mean, it's definitely very shady and questionable, but there was some justification there. There were some motives there. And now, as far as the burning people, yeah, that's not cool. But up until this point, I've just chalked it up to all the characters almost in Game of Thrones are not totally righteous. They all have these shady undersides. With a couple of exceptions, Braavos to be pretty pure, but almost all of them have some sketchy things, which is what makes Game of Thrones Song of Ice and Fire great, is that with a few exceptions, almost all the characters are not pure evil or pure good. They're human beings, and they have flaws, and they have good aspects.
But yeah, well, I was going to say I agree with you about the Renly thing, but I was going to bring up the other point in the show, at least Gendry, because Davos even brings up Renly comparison to Gendry, saying that, oh, well, that was different. Your brother wronged you, where this guy is a sweet, innocent nephew. And I think the show does a great job of showing the difference between Stannis' reaction with Gendry and with Shireen. Because with Gendry, he wouldn't bat an eye. He's like, yeah, sorry, he's my blood. I don't care. He still has to die. You know, he didn't feel that great about it, but he's like, no, I'm going to do it. Whereas when the suggestion came with Shireen, he's like, get the fuck out of here. I'm not going to do that. And it wasn't until he was at his lowest point that he begrudgingly did it. And you could tell, like, the way they played it, that was totally tearing him apart. And he's like, totally destroyed his whole morale.
But he still did it, and that's the bottom line. Doesn't matter how how begrudgingly you burn your own daughter at the stake. You still did it. I mean, he's still made that decision to do it, and that's the bottom line. And this just crosses a line that he hasn't crossed before. This is far worse than anything he has done before, because not only, I mean, is this his daughter who loved him with all of her heart and who trusted him implicitly. In fact, when she was first put on the stake, she assumed that he would save her, like that he could not possibly have anything to do with this. Like this is how much she trusted him. Not only that, but she was the sweetest, most innocent character in the entire series, which does make sense that they would do this, because that's what
they do. Yeah, I mean, but
that Stannis would do this, that just crossed the line that he can never come back from for me. And all the other stuff I was able to dismiss and be like, yeah, well, that's not that much worse than what other characters do. But this, like, I am now, like, just not a fan of Stannis.
Well, just to be clear, I totally agree with you about this. This is a bridge too far. This is crossing the line. And in my review, I referred to him as a monster, because I think, yeah, even though he was, when I was saying that stuff about him being upset, I wasn't trying to excuse him in any way. I'm just saying that it showed a different reaction. But I also think that it is in keeping with his character, because I think the show has established him as someone who really desires above all else to become, claim his rightful throne and become king. And not only that, he totally believes Melisandre that he is Azor Ahai and that he is going to save the world. So I think he puts that above everything.
Yeah, but to this point, he had not gone as far as he's gone. Like, and you didn't know for sure that he could. Sure, it was within the realm of possibility because of what we've seen before, but you didn't know for sure that he would really go this far. And now that he has, it's too far. And the thing I was thinking of, did it ever occur to him to say, hey, let's try leeches first? Because Melisandre pointed out, you saw the power of the King's blood, what we did with the leeches, and Joffrey died, and who was the other one? She left off Balon.
Yeah.
So it was
Robb Stark.
So it was Robb Stark and Joffrey, and so she's like, you see the power of King's blood. So why would Stannis not say, hey, maybe let's try leeches first and see how that goes? I mean, he just like, let's burn my daughter at the stake. And it was just such a horrible scene. It was this poor little innocent girl screaming, father and mother. I mean, it was just hard to watch. And to me, it was, and when I said in my video that it's more upsetting to me than the Sansa scene, I guess I don't mean that I'm upset like all the people were about the Sansa scene, that I'm going to stop watching the show and I can't believe that the showrunners did this. I just was upsetting. It's not that I blame the showrunners or anything like that. It was just, I had a stronger emotional reaction to it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I've heard from other reviews that apparently there are a whole bunch of people who are talking about quitting the show now after this scene. And when as soon as I heard that, I'm like, but the same thing happened with the Red Wedding. When the Red Wedding happened, there was a whole bunch of people who were threatening to quit the show as well. And I'm sure some of them did, but I think just like then, I think now the majority of them would be like the people who say they're never going to drink again while they're having a really bad hangover.
Right. Yeah. Now you bring up the Red Wedding, and you made a comparison to it, and I don't think that we can really have a disagreement, because I think it's how you view it. It's, if to you thought it equivalent to the Red Wedding. For me personally, it didn't produce the same kind of emotional response. The Red Wedding was a different thing because I really, naive as I was, believed that Robb Stark was gonna like march on to victory and like save the day. And when Robb Stark was set up as the hero, this is a different situation with Shireen, so it didn't produce this. It was different for me. Like I would not put them in the same playing field. I think Red Wedding is in a whole nother level for
Oh,
me
really?
personally.
Well, I mean, yeah, there are notably differences. Like this, some may consider worse because it turned Stannis into a likable character to a totally despisable character, where the Red Wedding didn't really do that. Everyone who was despisable, like you didn't really know Roose and you didn't really know Walder Frey, but you knew that they weren't nice guys. So it didn't really flip that around. Where this totally flipped around people's views on Stannis. So I could see that point of view, but for me, I think it's enacted a lot of the same emotions that I felt about the Red Wedding. Like I like this in the same way that I like the Red Wedding, and which is almost like a masochistic sort of way because it's so depressing and sad. But I just thought it was pulled off really
And I
well.
just, yeah, and I just didn't get that same thing. I felt that way about the Red Wedding. I didn't feel that here. Here, I was just upset. I didn't, don't consider that making this episode good.
Oh right,
Like to
okay.
me, I don't think it makes the episode bad either. I just don't think that it's the Red Wedding made that episode good. This didn't do that for me. It was only Meereen. Meereen was the one thing for me.
Okay, all right. Well, fair enough. Well, let's move on to. I could talk about this for a lot longer, but we don't want to spend too much time on this. So let's move on to Davos. Let's talk a bit about Davos because he was sent off to the Wall, of course, to get supplies. So, what do you think the possibility is that he will, instead of going back to Stannis' camp, will be sent on the mission to find Rakan, sort of similar to what happened to his book storyline?
Well, who would send him?
Uh, Well, I don't know, but in the book, Stannis doesn't directly send him to find Rakan. It's Wyman Manderley. So,
Why? Yeah. Oh, so he could run into somebody else who says, "Oh, I know where Rickon Stark is," and then he could just decide on his own to go out. Um, I think it's possible. I don't know what the likelihood of that is. I think that we're going to probably need to see Davos come back and find out that Shireen has been. I think we're probably going to need to see that. I think they'll add some intrigue to the story. Davos encountering Stannis after that has happened. So I would lean more toward that. But who knows?
uh,
I mean, maybe he goes off for a while.
so what do you think his reaction will be when he finds out about Shireen? Because I
You mean
predicted,
as far
because I said in my video that maybe he might just abandon Stannis altogether and be like, you know what, I'm done with you.
that would, I mean, that would be a very drastic change from the books, unless that's headed eventually in the books too. But we've already seen that they're willing to make big changes, so anything's on the table. I think that that's uh, it's almost hard to imagine because of how loyal he has been to Stannis. Like he's been Stannis's most loyal man all throughout. I mean, by far. He, so it. But if anything were to ever break that loyalty, it would be this.
Yeah.
So I think it's possible. I think it's within the realm of possibility. Though I don't know if that's what would happen. I can't say how Davos would react for sure.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like maybe his devotion to Stannis will actually override his anger he feels towards him, or maybe this will finally snap him out of it and just be like, I was kind of an idiot to follow you in the first place.
And if he did that, I mean, I don't think it would be good for him. I mean, I think he would just, it just seems like he would go into a bout of depression and maybe end up in some brothel in Volantis or something. I mean, I just don't think he would be a very happy, I mean, maybe even consider suicide or something. I think it would be very, very dark for him. Like, I don't think it would be easy for him to accept that this man that he has spent so much of his life being devoted to is, murdering his daughter on a stake and burning her alive. So
Yeah.
I think that would not be an easy thing for him to accept. So
Yeah, I know.
he may stay with Stannis because he's in denial and to a degree, like he doesn't want to accept
Oh, right.
that.
Yeah, that could be the case. Yeah, I know that you hadn't had a chance to watch many other reviews yet. However, several of them were talking about the possibility that Davos might join the Night's Watch. And although I think that'd be really cool, I don't think that's going to happen.
No, no. Uh, I did hear a discussion actually last week before this episode aired where people were talking about how Stannis would make a better Lord Commander than he would a king,
Oh,
which
right.
which I could kind of see, but that's not going to happen.
I want to bring up an interesting theory I heard, and I can't remember for the life of me where I heard it, but I know it was from a different reviewer. And I thought, as soon as I heard it, I was like, wow, that's actually pretty interesting. I don't know how much I buy that it will happen, but it's interesting to think about. Is that Brienne will actually encounter Stannis and kill him, and Melisandre will try to use her blood magic to resurrect him, but she will try to resurrect Azor Ahai, and it won't appear to work, but she ends up resurrecting someone else somewhere else without her knowledge.
Uh, that's a stretch, but because I don't think that would probably mean that Brienne would have to kill Stannis this like next week. I think for the timing to work out on that.
Not necessarily. It could happen maybe first episode next season.
Yeah. That would be a pretty major event for a first episode.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I'm not totally opposed to that idea. I'm unsure that the timing would work out for that theory to happen.
Yeah, like I agreed. It's probably not very likely, but it was. I just thought it was interesting. I thought it was interesting to talk about.
Yeah.
But just really, really quick, I just want to throw out Brienne because she wasn't in this episode. This is the only episode all season where we didn't get Sansa or that whole storyline. So, because we talked before about how Brienne's got a lot of work to do because Gwendolyn Christie said that Brienne features majorly in season 5, and so far she hasn't. So that means if she does, she has to do everything next episode.
I think either Gwendolyn Christie is on some kind of drugs or all the Brienne scenes ended up on the cutting room floor because I mean, if they did a 60-minute episode of Brienne, the Brienne show next week, it still wouldn't live up to those comments that Brienne has had a lot to do this season. Like, I don't...
Maybe she just does something really awesome next week, and maybe that's what she means. Not that she's in the show a lot, but that she does something really great. Kind of like the Hound thing of last year.
Well, let's hope that's the case because she hasn't done crap so far this year.
Yeah.
She's waiting for a freaking candle to light. Why are you waiting for a candle to light in the snow? That's not likely to happen anyway. Just go in there. So I'm wondering, I'll be curious to see next week if she does just say, let's just go in there, or if Sansa does light the candle somehow, or what happens.
Yeah.
But
Okay, so let's move on to the Wall, which didn't feature very prominently in this episode, but we did get to see. Now, I've heard a lot of complaints online, and I agree with the complaints, but I don't agree that it's as big of a deal that people are making it out to be. I think, it is a logical fallacy, but how the wildlings and Jon Snow all came to Castle Black, like, that doesn't make sense in geographical terms. Like, if they were sailing, they should have sailed to Eastwatch and then went along the other side of the wall until they got to Castle Black, which is true, but I think the show just wanted to have that really cool scene with Alistair staring at them from the wall, and that's all there is to it.
And who cares? I mean, come on, nerds. Let's not be so geeky. I mean, oh well, they followed the map. I mean, yes. I mean, I've been known to point out things like that before, but I don't get upset about it. Like, who cares? They did it to have a dramatic scene. It was a plot device. So what? I mean, let's move on. It's not really a big deal. I
Yeah,
mean, I don't see what the big problem is.
yeah. There are several people who are like saying this is the reason why this episode sucked, and saying it's absolutely
Oh,
horrible.
come on. Get a life. It's just a TV show. I mean, come on. You can't be that nitpicky and make a big deal about it. It's just, I mean, I'm nitpicky like that all the time. But I mean, I'm the biggest geek of all of them. But don't get upset about it. It's like, who
Well, see,
cares?
some people thought, oh, it would have been good if they came up with a reason, like maybe explain they got shipwrecked somewhere or they had to take the route. I'm like, no, they don't need to explain it. I mean, it's a fallacy, but who cares? It's not that big of a deal.
And you have to be a geek to even notice it. I mean, the casual viewer has no idea.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. But so then we get this shots of Jon Snow's future killers sitting there staring at them. I want to kill you. I mean, could they be any more heavy on the foreshadowing?
yeah, and somebody in my comments pointed out he thought that the guy that I had a picture of in my video was Bowen Marsh, and I was actually thinking when I posted that picture that I think that that's Bowen Marsh. So I think one of the dudes who was staring at him was Bowen Marsh.
I'm not sure if that particular guy is Bone Marsh. I may
I
be.
don't know.
I mean,
I can't remember who Bowen Marsh is in the show, but he's definitely been in like 5 episodes or something.
oh, is he?
So
Oh, I only
yeah,
remember seeing him the once.
no, he's been like I can think of him at least 3 times, but I can't even remember what he looked like. But he was some guy with a beard, so I thought it might have been that guy. But anyway, I would I would be surprised if one of the people staring at John was not Bowen Marsh.
Yeah, maybe, but I don't think Bone Marsh is going to be the main head guy.
No, obviously not.
Yeah.
No, but he is going to be one of the stabbers. He's just going to be like one of the background dudes. He's not going to be that important.
I mean, there's been some speculation that maybe in the show it's just Ollie who does it.
Uh, I would only if he was put up to by other people. Like if other people, I don't think he would just do it independently.
Maybe it's like a surprise attack, like he sneaks up on John while he's on the shitter or something.
No, that's been. I can't do that again.
Well, maybe not the shitter. Maybe while he's taking notes in his office or something.
Now, yeah, I think that no, I think it's going to be more of a similar to the books, and Ollie's going to be involved. But
So I think we can probably forego the For the Watch because I think we're both in complete agreement that's happening next week.
yes,
Yeah.
so yeah, one more thing I wanted to talk about as well actually is, so what do you think about? Is there going to be an equivalent of the pink letter, or is there going to be something where John wants to go down and save Sansa because he learns about Sansa, or do you think they're just going to forego that whole thing?
I think it's very likely that they're going to forego it, but I know a lot of people, and I'm kind of amongst them, think that if they do forego it, then it makes the reason for the watch a bit weaker and not as strong as it was in the books. But I do think that is the distinct possibility.
Um, yeah, I think we talked about this last week actually, because I think I remember saying that I don't know. It seems hard to believe that John would abandon his post after being attacked by freaking White Walkers. Like it just seems like unimaginable.
Yeah.
Uh, so and I feel like they've already decided to do For the Watch right now before there's been any pink letter or anything. So I personally think their reasons are weak. Like I think it's totally legit. I don't think it would weaken it at all. I think they've already decided it, and there hasn't been anything like the pink letter yet. So I would be totally fine if they left that out. And in fact, when I read the books, I predicted that they would leave it out.
Well,
So,
here's the thing that would kind of bother me because if they were planning on doing For the Watch all along, why even let Jon Snow and the Wildlings in at all? Why not just be like, shut them out and be like, that way they don't have to let the Wildlings in.
well, yeah, I mean, maybe it's not Alistair Thorne who's actually planning it. I mean, maybe it's other people and who don't have control of letting the wildlings in.
That could be the case.
I mean, who knows?
Yeah, but the one other thing I wanted to say about the wall real quick is that when Alistair, and I forgot to mention this in my spoiler-free videos, when Alistair Thorne says to Jon, "Oh, you have a kind heart and it's going to get us all killed," I was like, Jon Snow, I wish you would just say, no, this isn't about being a kind heart. This is about being smart because we don't want this army that almost freaking killed us all of dead people to come and get us. I'm like, come on, stick up for yourself, Jon Snow.
Yeah, and I believe I remember making this case in the earlier episodes this season, where it's like Jon Snow is not standing up for his case. He's not making his case well enough. He is not. I mean, there's so many better things to say, and that's why I said in my video. Well, I hope he at least tells Alistair Thorne about the wildling attack. I assume that he will. It'll be off screen, and we'll just assume that it happened. But it's just like, I mean, come on, make a case for yourself. You get a really, really good case. I mean, any audience member who watched the episode last week could have no doubt that Jon Snow is absolutely right. I mean, he's got the truth on his side. Argue your case a little better than that.
Yeah,
But
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so let's move on to Dorne. Let's talk about Dorne. So in my review video, I said I really hope that there's more coming next week. In your review video, you said that there's more coming next week. So are you like certain that there's definitely there's more coming to this?
I don't know that I said I know. I mean, I could be wrong,
Well,
but
I'm
I
kind
have.
of paraphrasing, yeah.
Yeah, but that's stronger language than I think I would have used.
Okay.
But I'm feeling very confident that they are setting up for Duran's master plan, which has not been revealed yet. So, which, by the way, you've spoken more specific terms in your video than I would have in a spoiler-free video talking about Duran's master plan. I tried to not mention anything about him having a master plan. I was just like, I think something is coming.
Oh, I mean, all I said was I hope Duran has a master plan, or maybe this is part of his master plan. So I didn't really see that. I've seen other spoiler-free videos mention Duran's master plan. So.
Yeah, and which is fine. You guys can do that. I'm not. I'm avoiding saying Duran's master plan until it comes out. But that's just me. But so I was just speaking in vague terms about
But
I think something is coming.
so, do you have a specific theory on what that might?
I do. I do have a specific theory of. I'm glad you asked, Mark. I am on board with right now with the Kingmaker theory that he's trying to put Trystane on the Iron Throne, and either through Myrcella or Daenerys, but I'm leaning toward Daenerys. I think that it would make more sense that they would just spite the entire Lannister family, and it would go toward Daenerys. But I think I just found it convenient that he was just like, oh, well, I want Trystane to go with her, and I want him to be on the small council. So, and this, okay, here's my greater theory, and this might be far-fetched. You like to sometimes throw out these far-out theories,
Yeah.
so it's my turn.
Sure.
But and it stems back to the necklace. You said in your video, oh, when we know what happened with the necklace, it was Valeria Sand. And I'm thinking, not necessarily. I mean, it was hinted at, but that could have been a misdirection. It was never stated explicitly that it was Valeria Sand. So my theory is that it was a setup by Duran. It was all part of his master plan that Cersei sent, not necessarily Jaime, but somebody down there to get Myrcella. He would know about it. He would capture them, and he would say, hey, okay, I'll tell you what. I give you Myrcella, but Trystane goes there too. And it's just kind of his way of getting Trystane in place, like he's putting the chess pieces in place, and he's putting Trystane and King's Landing right where he wants him. So that, like, his master plan is already underway. That's my kind of far out theory.
I admit that would be really cool. That would be good to see something like that. And although I am leaning towards the necklace simply being a lard, because it was, to me, that look pretty much stated it. But you're right, it wasn't implicitly stated, so perhaps maybe it wasn't. But the only way I'd be okay if it wasn't her, if it was a part of a greater plan like the one you just said. Like if it did that, I would be very happy with it. I would be like, yeah, okay, that's a good excuse.
Yeah, and what did you think about Duran in this episode? Because I said in my video I thought this was his. I loved him in this episode. This was his what I've been waiting to see all year from him. I thought this was his strongest episode. I really liked him.
Well, yeah, I think that's definitely the case because it's the only episode where he really had something to do and wasn't
Yeah,
just in there for like 2 seconds.
yeah, yeah.
And
Which could turn out bad if it wasn't a good actor and a good character.
yeah,
But it turned out really well. I loved him.
yeah, I agree. I agree with that. And I also think that the sand snakes are really good in this episode as
Yeah.
well. I thought pretty much all the Dorne characters were more fleshed out, and I was happy with them, except for Alaria Sand. I thought her sort of talk with Jamie was a bit off. Like, I do think that the show is really trying to say that she's actually trying to bury the hatchet with him because he has to please Duran. But if that's the case, then it comes off a bit fake.
Yeah. Well, it does come off fake, and that's why I thought it was fake. I thought she was. I was like, she's got some ulterior motive. I don't know if she's being truthful, but if it wasn't fake, then I agree with you. Then it was poorly done.
I mean, just to be clear, if we don't see Dorne in next week's episode, I'm going to consider Dorne's storyline a failure for this season.
I think yeah. I mean, the, I think Duran's master plan would have to be really spectacular for it not to be. Maybe failure is a strong word, but at least disappointment.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, actually, I think really probably there's nothing it can do to not be a disappointment. But I'm on board with you about like I'm against all the sand snake hate.
Yeah.
Uh, although I didn't, I wasn't overwhelmed by them in this episode. I didn't dislike them. I just thought, I mean, they were just kind of throw-ins. I didn't really think that. I mean, to me, that slapping game was not really. That was just a throw-in scene. I didn't think it was anything special.
I really liked that. I thought it helped. It helped me understand the characters more. But just a piece of trivia: apparently, the slapping game was based off the game that David Benioff played with the guy who played Carl Drogon when they were really drunk, and he ended up having to go to the hospital because his hand got so hurt.
That's a very interesting piece of trivia. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Yeah, I didn't dislike it, and I'm totally against all this sand snake hate. But to me, it was just, I mean, I was almost not even going to mention it in my video, which is kind of an afterthought. It didn't really contribute to the episode to me.
So, just getting back to the theories of Duran's master plan, I think that to me, like the two most biggest possibilities is either it's an alliance with the Targaryens somehow, and I personally I don't think that alliance would involve a marriage between Trystane and Daenerys. I suppose it could. I mean, that would make the most sense, but maybe it would just involve an alliance with the other way. But it's sort of tied into the theory that Varys goes to Dorne, and Varys is somehow involved with that. So that's one possibility, I think. And to me, the other possibility is just completely like similar to what you were saying, where it's all part of Duran's master plan to send Trystane up to King's Landing to become king, but through Myrcella and having nothing to do with Daenerys.
Yeah, and that's the possibilities. I said it would be either through Daenerys or Myrcella, but I was leaning more toward Daenerys because I would think that the Martells would just want to cut ties completely with that whole Lannister crap, and they wouldn't want Myrcella involved. But so that's why I'm leaning more toward it being Daenerys.
Well,
but I could see it being Myrcella too.
I just thought of something. What if it's both? What if it's twofold? He wants to put Myrcella in place, or Trystane and Myrcella in place. Trystane through Myrcella in place in King's Landing, but make an alliance with Daenerys at the same time so they can attack from two fronts.
Well, Daenerys doesn't want to share the Iron Throne, so...
No, they wouldn't. They would give it to Daenerys, but it would be like an alliance.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. But you mentioned Varys. So I wanted to talk about Varys. So
Yep, sure.
I'm thinking that he's got to show up. He has to show up in episode 10. But is he going to show up in Dorne, or is he going to show up killing Kevin Lannister and Pycelle?
I'm like 50-50, and I'd be happy with either one. I'd be happy with him showing up in Dorne as long as Littlefinger kills Kevin and Pycelle. Somebody
Yeah.
needs to kill Kevin and Pycelle.
Yeah. And I heard somebody in another video last week saying, well, they haven't really set up Kevin Lannister. I mean, is anybody that you care about? But you don't have to care about him. You just have to care about what he's doing.
Exactly.
And I think they can easily just set that up in one episode. So I think there's no reason why he still couldn't be killed. Because if he's about to go and do something that's, against what Littlefinger's chaos plan, then I could definitely see him killing Kevin Lannister.
Yeah, well, and to me, like having him in the first two episodes has to pay off something. Like if he's the one who gets killed in the final episode, I think then that having him in those first two episodes is a setup for that, and to me that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, Chekhov's uncle.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid mentioning Chekhov, but yeah.
Oh, now I'm just having fun with the Chekhovs.
Captain, nuclear vessels. All right. So, anything else on Dorne before we move on?
No, we can move on.
All right. All right. So yeah, let's move on to Braavos. So, what did you think of the whole Mace Tyrell singing? Because I said in my video that I thought it was a bit over the top. I can't remember what you said about him, but did you?
Oh no, I just said that he was making a total ass of himself. No, I didn't think it was over the top at all. I thought, just in keeping with what little we know about his character, he is definitely a one-dimensional character. He's just this buffoon. But so I thought it was kind of in keeping with who he is. So I was fine with it. I didn't think it was over the top, and I did think it was really funny. I did.
Yeah.
I did like him, watching him make a total ass out of himself, and I would expect him to. I mean, that was expected behavior for me.
See, yeah, that's one thing I want to be clear on. I'm not saying that I hated the scene. I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. But it's just like, some people had a huge problem with it and overall had a huge problem with what they're doing with Mace Tyrell's character, but I think it's fine. I think you need to lighten up a bit. I don't think it's like completely horrible.
Yeah, I agree.
So, what I kept trying. I was going to ask you because I can't remember. It's been a while since I read the Mercy chapter. But the Raft the Sweetling, who it seems like Meereen Trant's taking his place, was he also into little girls? Was that a trait they gave to Trant that belonged to Raft the Sweetling?
I was thinking it was Darian who would go to the brothel. Darian definitely went to brothels at
Yeah,
least.
he
I don't
did.
know if he was into little girls.
No, I don't think he was into little girls. I know he almost married someone, so I think he was into normal people his age.
Yeah. Maybe.
Because
I'm sure somebody will clear that up in the comments.
Because didn't Raft the Sweetling try to get with Arya, and that's how she killed him because she pretended to be like a prostitute or something?
Maybe.
So that made me wonder if that's what she's going to do here. In fact, I almost thought she was going to do it in this episode.
I know. I thought. I actually thought that the woman who was running the brothel was going to be like, "Hey, you get in here!"
Yeah.
But he's not wearing a different face, so I would think Meereen Trant would be like, "You bloody Arya fucking stalk." I mean, I think he would recognize her.
They did show him looking directly at her, and the look that he got to me was like, I know this person from somewhere, but I just can't place it because she does look really different.
I thought he just didn't really get a good look at her. I mean, I think that if he saw her like up close, like and really got a good look at her, I think he would know.
I think maybe not a good look, but there's definitely a couple of shots in there where you could tell he just double glances at her and it's just sort of like, wait a second.
But then he looks away uninterested. He's like, I don't know, whatever. And I think if he really was staring at her, like, I think he would figure it out.
I'm not so sure. It's been a long time since they ran into each other, and he only
Because
really ran into her the once.
we'll see. We'll see. Maybe next week that's what happens. Maybe she does start to be a prostitute and or pretends to be like a young prostitute, and then like right before he kills her, he remembers who she
Yeah,
is.
I think if he was with her long enough, it would eventually come back to him.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, I think that is true. So yeah, we're pretty much. I don't know anyone who thinks otherwise, but we're pretty much agreed that Jakin knows exactly that Arya is lying to him because how could he not?
Yeah, and well, what I said in my video is, what the hell is Arya thinking that she? I mean, did she not remember how he like just beat her every time she said the slightest lie? Like, why does she think she's gonna get away with that? Like, I don't even know why she thinks she can lie to him.
I'm kind of thinking that they're gonna end her story with the whole blind thing. She's gonna kill Maren Tran, and Jakin's gonna make her blind as punishment.
I th- that was my original prediction, so that it would end right where Feast for Crows ended. Um, I'm not, I think I've also mentioned that maybe they might forego the blindness thing, possibly. So I could see it going either way. I think if they were going to do it, it'll end the season.
Yeah,
If they're gonna skip it, then it won't end the season, and you'll never see it. But if they're gonna do it at all, it will be the end of the season.
yeah, I could see them coming up with a different punishment instead of blindness, so it would be
Yeah,
like sort of a stand-in for being blind.
I could see that too. Yeah.
Because maybe being blind wouldn't work as well in the show because you just have to have her say, "Oh, I'm blind."
Right. And she was blind for like half a chapter.
No. Yeah, that was kind of like because we read the books like after all the first five had been published, but people who were reading Feast when it first came out had to wait like was it 6 years and then find out she gets cured in the very next chapter.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure that was pretty anticlimactic.
Okay, so let's move on now to Meereen, the big, huge scene. So the first thing I want to touch on Meereen is the huge differences in our video. We seem to have a very different opinion on a particular scene, and that's involving Hizdar because I said in my video I thought, well, Hizdar definitely wasn't involved with the Harpies because he's dead, and anyone who thinks he's still involved with the Harpies is being ridiculous. But you in your video pointed out that maybe he isn't dead, and you also pointed out the very scene at the beginning where he was like, "Sorry, I'm late." Which which is a bit suspicious. And then you also mentioned about the promo for next week where we hear Tyrion saying you betrayed her, which I had assumed, I'll be honest, I had assumed he was talking to Jor, but you bring up the possibility he was talking about to Hizdar. And I want to say that I'll start out by making a concession, and that is, I think you have a very valid point about the Hizdar being late, because that does seem like, I'm sorry to say it, but the Chekhov's gun, Chekhov's Hizdar being late. It's like, why
Yeah,
put that in there? Why
I
have
thought of it as the Chekhov's tardiness. Yeah, he's tardy. I mean, why would you put that in there? So,
but I'm still of the strong opinion that he is dead because I think like to me personally I thought maybe you were reading a bit too much into his twitching. I think to me that was just like a death twitch, and I thought that shot was showing his dead body, but I could be wrong. And like I said, I think that Tyrion's talking to Jor because Jor is going to try to be like okay again and try to like rule Meereen, so Tyrion might have an issue with it because he betrayed Daenerys. But again, I could still be wrong.
yeah.
But
Well, I don't. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, but I think that the Chekhov's tardiness could either be like just thrown in there, not mean anything, which I agree is kind of iffy, or it could possibly mean something completely different that leads into a different storyline. That maybe Hizdar, incidentally allowed the attack to happen without realizing it, or something.
Um. Well, first of all, I don't. I think I'm just gonna have fun with the Chekhovs. With the Chekhovs twitching. I mean, I don't think you flashed the camera over to the scene, his head was still bobbing up and down. He was. I think that if he were dead, they would show him dead, or they just wouldn't show him at all. If they're gonna, they're showing him to make a point. Either he's going to be dead and you're going to see, oh my God, Hisdar is dead, or he's still moving and they're showing you he's still alive. So I don't think that they would show a death twitch. I think if they're showing him moving, he's still alive, first of all. Secondly, and I want to put my whole theory in context because
Sure.
because I agree with you, he's not the Harpy. Not only do I think he's not the Harpy, I don't even think he's anyone of any importance in the Sons of the Harpy organization. I think he's just some guy who's selling Daenerys down the river. I think that the betrayal is fairly recent. It could maybe even be because he's not too happy about being thrown in prison and being threatened with dragons eating him, or it could be it even happened a little bit before that, and the irony will be that Daenerys was right to throw him in prison and have dragons almost eat him, and she should have kept it that way because he has betrayed her. And I think it's a recent betrayal. It's not like he was planning this from the beginning. It's not like he's some big high up person in the organization. They just made him some kind of offer, and the reason why they kill him is the same reason that Littlefinger killed Dantos, the same reason why all the people in 24 always died, because they don't want to pay up. Whatever it is that they offered him, they don't want to pay, so they killed him. It's a very classic plot device that's been used over and over, so I don't think it's ridiculous. I don't see anything wrong with it.
I
And
just
to me,
hate that plot device, though.
true, but at least he didn't say, "Hey, where's my money? I've got your money right here."
Yeah, just to be clear, that's a running joke that Akton Tamko and I have because it seems to happen in 24 like every year or sometimes 2 times a year where will do that. Somebody sells a terrorist something and he just kills them off. And I'm like, why are you selling terrorist stuff? You know you're just gonna get killed off.
Yeah, and the same thing, exact thing happened to Dantos with Littlefinger last season. I mean, it's funny, Dantos was even going to leave, and Littlefinger says, "Hey, don't you want your money?" "Oh yeah, my money." "Here's your money." I mean, it's like he was setting him up for a
Yeah,
joke.
I think
Dantos
the 24 totally ruined that gag man.
Yeah, but um, and I believe that Tyrion fully believes that Jorah is fully devoted to Daenerys, and he wouldn't bother questioning that he betrayed her. He would. I don't think he would mention that to her. I'm could be going on a limb, but I feel pretty confident. I think we're going to see it. I think he's going to talking to Hisdar, and I think that Hisdar is his convenient tardiness was because he was arranging to let the Sons of Harpy in. And I do think that it's more of a betrayal than it is like he's been a member of the organization all along, because I don't think he has been.
All right, so give me a percentage wise, like how sure are you in this theory that it's going to happen?
Um, Actually, earlier today I'm like 99% sure, but I don't know. Once you were talking about it and explaining what else Tyrion's line could mean, okay, I'll go down to, we'll say 90. I'm 90%. I'm still feeling I've just have a really strong feeling about this.
Really, I was gonna say I'm about 80% sure that he is dead. Uh, well, no, I think it's 80%, 90% sure that he's dead, but 80% sure that his tardiness was nothing.
Yeah, I don't think that they put the tardiness in there for no reason, and I don't think they show you his body still moving if he's dead.
So yeah,
So
the twitching thing we'll have to agree to disagree because that shot, nothing jumped out at me for that. And when I saw that shot, it seemed normal that they were just emphasizing that his.
let me make this clear though, that I did like rewatch that like several times and like overanalyzed it. So it could be that, but I was like, look, he's really moving. I mean, so but I'm just adding all those things together. It's like they're different pieces of the puzzle, and I'm putting them together. And I also found it interesting that the scene in the promo, it was a disembodied Tyrion voice, so you didn't know what it was. So, like, if he was talking to Jorah, they could have showed him talking to Jorah. So, but if you're trying to keep it a secret, like it's Hisdar, then you just have a disembodied voice. So I just putting it all together makes me really feel good about my theory.
I guess that's possible. But as I was watching the scene, I was just thinking, I was pretty much certain that there isn't going to be a harpy. There's not going to be a particular leader.
Well, which I agree with. I say again, Hizdar is not the leader. He's just some dude who took advantage of an opportunity.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
He's just like a nobody. He's not even really a part of the organization. He's just working.
He's like a Dantos.
Yes, he's like a Dantos. He's a nobody. I don't think he's the Harpy.
Well, okay. To be clear, I think that theory's got. I would give that theory about 60% chance of being correct, but I don't think he's alive.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out next week. You want to talk about something else, Meereen?
Yeah.
Since there's so much else other than Hizdar.
Yeah. Well, the other really big thing I wanted to talk about is this video I made last week about my predictions for episode 10, and because I made a really bold prediction that Daenerys would be going to Westeros by the end of episode 10, and I had a lot of people take issue with that in the comment section, and I think it's fair to do it because that's why I call it a bold prediction, because it's very unlikely to happen. But I was just thinking that whether or not she does go to Westeros by the end of the next week's episode, I think that it's almost, well, I would put my money on that they were just skipping the Battle of Meereen, and we got this instead. This was the replacement for the Battle of Meereen.
Possibly, but I think there needs she can't go to Westeros until the Sons of Harpy is resolved, and it may not need a big battle to resolve it. But I don't. This is why after watching this episode, I was thinking that your theory that she would leave at the end of next week is, to me, it's not very likely at all, because I don't think that they can resolve Daenerys being flown off on Drogon and resolve the Sons of Harpy conflict in one episode when they have all these other storylines to get to. So I don't think she leaves Westeros. I think they need to still resolve the Sons of Harpy, and it may not involve a huge battle like it does in the books, but there needs to be something else. Like, that can't be the end of that storyline.
Yeah, I agree. It's a long shot, and I'm starting to think it's less likely. But I even said, from the beginning that I thought it was a long shot. But I'm pretty confident on the skipping the battle thing, though.
Yeah, I mean, what I've said in the past is they might gloss over it, like they might minimize it. I think there's going to have to be something more. It doesn't have to be a battle, but I think there's going to be something else.
I thought maybe that Dany would just show up with the Dothraki and just clear out the city and be like, all right, fuck it.
Well, that would be something else.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know.
That would qualify.
Yeah, it's kind of agreeing with you there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that it doesn't have to be a big battle. Are we agreed then, for sure, by the end of season 6, Daenerys has set foot in Westeros?
Yes. I'm definitely. In fact, I would go as far to say she leaves for Westeros in early season 6.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a possibility. I think it's definitely a possibility.
And because I think they are streamlining. Because I think in Winds of Winter, I don't know even sure if she is going to leave for Westeros. And she does, it probably won't be till like the end of the book. But I think the show is making things happen a lot quicker, and they're doing stuff out of order. And I think because I'm really against the Trystane being Aegon theory. I think they're foregoing Aegon entirely in the show, and Daenerys is going to take over that storyline, which is why I think they're going to have her get to Westeros a bit quicker, even if it's not this season, but I think it's going to happen a bit quicker.
Yeah, and I'm really not a fan of the Trystane as Aegon theory at all. I mean, I remember a few weeks ago that I was playing devil's advocate a little bit, and I was like, well, what about this theory? But I don't actually really believe it. I mean, as we were talking about Dorne earlier, I'm more into Trystane as the Duran's plan being Trystane being the king, but not because he's Aegon. Like, I don't think Aegon has anything to do with it.
Yeah. And just the whole why I think the battle will be skipped is because they skipped over so many elements that were involved in the battle. Barris to Selmy, Victorian coming, the Yunkai attacking, them not having ships, and because of all that, I'm just thinking, They're just not going to
Yeah.
bother with it.
Yeah. I mean that very well could be true. And they're getting farther than I thought because I had predicted this scene to be the very last scene of the season, but in fact we've seen in the promo that they're going to spend some more time in Meereen.
Yeah.
So we're going to, and also in the synopsis, which you read last week, it says I think Daenerys is surrounded by strangers. Is that
Yes.
what it said?
Yes, that's what it said. Yeah.
So which we took to mean the Dothraki.
Yeah.
But it could be something
Could
different.
be something else. Yeah.
They could change it. They're going a little bit beyond Daenerys riding off on Drogon, which is further than we thought that they were going to go.
Yeah, I mean that's the one prediction we were like 100% agreed on. We were like, oh, definitely it's going to be the final scene of the season. And, you know, I think it would be funny if the final scene of the season actually is the For the Watch. Because in that case, like your predictions are reversed because you predicted For the Watch would be the episode 9 and the dragon would be episode 10. So if they do it that way, it would be like just switcheroo.
Which I already started believing last week. I was starting to think that might be the case.
Yeah.
That might switch it.
Okay, so let's talk about the Drogon fight scene and how it was different from the books because I've heard some complaints actually saying that they didn't like the changes. A lot of people, yeah, there's quite a surprising number of people were saying that there's too many logic, faults in logic. Like how come the Harpies got in? Where'd they get all these masks from? Or how they slipped by? Where are all the Unsullied? And I even said that in my video.
When I joked about how they appeared out
Yeah.
of nowhere and where were they hiding their masks and all that, but
So,
I hated that too.
Some of this stuff I agree with, but it's just like it doesn't make the scene bad. It's like who cares? They're just minor little nitpicky notes.
Yeah, no, I thought it was just funny how they just kind of, they're just there all of a sudden. It didn't bother me. I don't care.
And then, but I heard other people didn't like how they changed the dynamic with Drogon coming to save Daenerys and like literally fighting off the Harpies. Where in the book he was just attracted by the food and he wasn't attacking anyone until they started attacking him because he was eating that dead fighter's dead body and they thought that was gross, so they started attacking him and so he attacked them back. What I think I'm on your side though because I think I liked what they did in the show better. I think it had a lot more tension, a lot more sort of dynamic storytelling to it than just being Drogon going crazy.
Yeah, and remember my video, I made it. I always make my videos right after I watch the episode, just my knee-jerk reaction. So I don't listen to what anybody else says before I make the video. But I anticipated that people were going to say, "Oh, this is terrible." I can't believe it. I knew people were going to say that, and I said that Drogon. I like how Drogon comes in to save the day, even though it does seem a little bit hokey on the surface. I just love the way that I think the Sons of Harpy attack had a lot more meaning than Drogon just going in there randomly and just start eating people because they're attacking him. I think the Sons of Harpy to me that was really intense. Even though I make fun of them popping out of nowhere, I also thought it was very creepy how they were just all of a sudden they were just there, and those masks are a little bit creepy. And the music was perfect. It was a very intense scene, even though we knew Drogon wasn't going to come. I mean, it was still.
Well, see, I was watching this with someone who haven't read the books and know nothing about what's going to happen. And like a second before Drogon came, he was like, "Oh, the dragon's going to come." And right after he said that, you hear the dragon screeching. And I've heard a lot of non-book readers say that as well. So apparently, it was pretty obvious that he was going to come even to non-book readers.
Right. Yeah, because how else is she going to get out of it?
Yeah.
But I liked. To me, there was much more meaning. I was much more involved in, the Sons of Harpy attack than I was just Drogon randomly showing up.
Oh,
I loved it, and also I mentioned in my video, I feel like that. To me, it seems like the show is playing up the bond between Daenerys and her dragons in a way that I don't really recall the book doing, having really explored that as much. But especially this season when he comes on the top of the pyramid and she's petting him, like I feel like they're really this bond between her and the dragons in a way that they hadn't done in the book. So it makes sense to me that he would show up then, and within the context of the show, it made perfect sense, and I love it. I love that he came flying in and started roasting Sons of Harpy. It was awesome.
Yeah, well,
it was awesome.
Well, you know my opinion, because I think this could be the best scene of the entire series. So I'm absolutely with you. I totally loved it. And plus, I'm with you with the connection between Daenerys and her dragon. In fact, I think they've played this up a bit more in the show historically, even going back to like season 2 and stuff. So I think this is in keeping with what the show has established.
Yeah, absolutely. Now the big question is, will the other dragons get released next week?
Yeah, that is the big question. I had 2 theories on that.
Did we want to talk about that now, or did you have more you wanted to say about Drogon?
Nah. I think we can move on to the other dragons, unless there's anything else you wanted to say.
No. Let's do the other dragons.
Okay, so my 2 theories on that is that maybe this is my original theory. I think you might have shared this way back from last year, that the Harpies come in and I think they would try to kill them while they were chained rather than take control of them. And
that would make a lot more sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and so they don't want that to happen again, so they try to kill the dragons, but instead end up letting them free. And the other theory I had is maybe it's just as simple as Dany comes back and just lets them go. And she's with her time with Drogon, she's learned how to deal with them. Because I noticed there's a huge difference in the way she reacted to Drogon, the scene we got earlier this season when she went into the pits where they're being kept and tried to talk to them, and she just ended up being scared, freaked out, and just ran away. It's because she was showing fear, whereas when Drogon appeared, like, he screeched right in her face and she just didn't move and just like showed no fear. So I think she's learned how to deal with them, so maybe she just goes back and lets them go.
Yeah, that could be. I think that's probably the strongest possibility. Probably beats the one I was thinking of, which was that, which is one you didn't mention, that maybe Tyrion and Jorah and Daario decide, well, maybe we should release these dragons because I don't know, it worked out well with the other dragon. I don't know. Yeah, actually, it's a weak theory.
That was stupid. Although I was thinking along the lines of I don't know, a lot of people don't like this theory, but a lot of people do like it, and I'm always a fan of the Tyrion Targaryen theory, and maybe he goes in and the dragons respond well to them, so they learn that he's a Targaryen that way. Although I think if that were to happen, which of course I'm not sure it will, it would probably be later on, like this season.
Yeah, I don't think that would be next week.
Yeah.
But, do you think Daenerys just gets back to Meereen like next week? By the end of the episode?
My whole going to Westeros theory.
Right.
So, but of course that theory is probably not going to happen anyway. But so maybe not. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Because I think she might, but she's not going back to Westeros.
I don't know. I think I agree that they have too much to do next week, especially the Sons of Brienne. We need some speed on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be a longer episode like it was last year. The finale was longer.
I've read somewhere it's 53 minutes.
Really? Because they have so much ground to cover.
No. So another thing I heard some complaints about is that Daenerys' motivation for getting on Drogon and going for a ride in the show seemed a bit off. Some people had a problem with that. Why would she get on Drogon and leave in the middle of a fight and just leave her friends there? Whereas in the book it happened a bit differently. She was a bit dazed. She didn't purposely go up and tell him to fly. So did you have any problems with that?
Not any major problems. But the other thing is, in the book, I get the impression she was, getting Drogon out of there because Drogon was the cause of the problem. So she was removing him from that situation. So it was a little iffy that she would fly off of Drogon. Although I do feel like the battle was pretty well done. And so were a lot of the Sons of the Harpy. They were pretty well done after being roasted by Dragonfire. So I mean, I just think it was a connection with the dragon moment, something that they've been really building up to all season.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
didn't Dario even have a line earlier, like, how you're a mother with dragons without dragons, and that's why she went down to the tomb in the first
Yeah,
place?
yeah, yeah.
So I feel like they've been building up for she needs to reestablish this connection with the dragons, and that is what that was. That's exactly what she did. Like it was just her kind of getting lost in Drogon and flying off. So the short answer is no. I didn't really have a problem with it.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me. I mean, I can see where it seems a little iffy, but I like it. I think it makes sense in the context of what the show has set up regarding her, building connection to the dragons and how important it is for her to reestablish that.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see their point of view, but overall, I think it does make sense. I think you're right. I think she needs to connect with the dragon. Plus, like, it makes sense that she'd want to just get out of there because she's their target. And then that's another thing a lot of people were complaining about is what happened to all the harpies after she left, why they just stopped fighting all of a sudden. It's like, well, because a dragon killed most of them and their target just flew away.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And also, I mean, some of them might have been scared shitless. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Just been, let's
So,
get out of here.
so I was happy with that fun.
I had no problem with it.
Okay, so let's move on to our Q&A. So first I'll start it with a question from the Sugar Britches, who asks, and do you think Celise is finally snapped out of whatever hold Melisandre has on her?
Um, I don't know. I think it's kind of similar to Davos in that I don't know how she's going to react moving forward. Is she going to snap out of this? Or, I mean, it yeah, it kind of, I think it's going to be hard for her to continue following Melisandre. I think she's going to, let's say there's going to be, she's going to, her faith has been tested in the Red God. Let's put it that way. I think that it's not going to be easy for her going forward to continue as she was before. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know.
I was thinking the same lines. Like she may not turn on Melisandre entirely, but I think it is going to be a crisis of faith for her.
Yes, that's what I think too.
And maybe she'll stop being such a mean spirited bitch.
Yeah.
And of course, Shireen's not around anymore for her to boss around. So I think she's going to start to miss that relationship and realize that she was taking it for granted before, and it might change her character in that way.
Yeah, and she may eventually turn on Melisandre, but I think it would be kind of a long process. It wouldn't be like next week.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you have a question you want to ask?
Yes, I have a question from Emery is Life, who asked a question last week. I think asks a question almost every week. So the question is, so now that Shireen sacrifice for Jon theory is out the window, how do you think For the Watch is resolved? And before you answer that, I just want to say I had never heard the Shireen is sacrifice for Jon theory before. This is actually the first I've heard of it. But if I had heard it, I wouldn't have gone along with it. But
Yeah, I hadn't heard that theory either.
yeah. So apparently there's this theory that Shireen would be sacrificed for Jon. But that is definitely out the window. So how is For the Watch going to be resolved?
Uh, yeah. Well, I don't. That's a very good question. I mean, I talked about my theory earlier that maybe it had to do with Melisandre trying to resurrect Stannis, but I don't know about that. Yeah, it's still a real mystery to me how Jon will get resurrected. I mean, we've seen the power of King's blood could have, or hopefully we will see some results from Shireen being sacrificed. So maybe Jon being resurrected is an after result of that, but I kind of doubt that. But I don't know. I'm still really open. I'll have to see.
Okay. Well, I have a theory. Um, well, my book theories, I was on board with the warging and the Melisandre bringing him back, which I guess a lot of people had those as two separate theories. I kind of combined it, like that Melisandre was somehow going to facilitate Jon warging into Ghost. Both of those off the table in the show, because there's no setup for warging in the show with Jon, and Melisandre isn't there. So it was racking my brain and thinking, like, how are they going to do it in the show? So I came up with a theory just after we did our discussion video. So I wasn't able last week, so I wasn't able to talk about it, but I did mention it in the comments. Then later in that week, I listened to another book discussion video, or it was a podcast where they brought up the same theory, and I was like, damn it, somebody else thought of this, because I thought I was going to be the only one. But this is what I'm thinking. Maybe that stare down between Jon and the Night's King was a setup, and that the Night's King is going to bring back Jon. And it's the only thing that I can think of, the only way I can think of that he's going to come back. And how that would play out, there would be two possibilities. One would be kind of like the, Saeed from Lost and the smoke monster thing, but hopefully it would be a lot better done. But he would be somehow, connected to the White Walkers. The other one is that I think maybe they realize that they need Jon for some reason. And remember, my theory in my How the Game of Thrones Will End video is like there's going to be a truce and all this stuff, and Jon Snow would play a big part of that. So maybe it doesn't have to be that, but maybe they realize they need Jon for some reason, and they need him as himself. So they're not going to bring him back as a white. They're going to bring him back like as himself, for some unknown purpose that we don't know.
So it's not going to be like an evil Jon Snow?
No, I mean, it might be a little bit of like he's, his soul is attached to the White Walkers, like they have some control over him, and that will come into play, but it won't be like evil, like he'll still be himself. But I don't know how it would really play out, but that's the only thing that I can think of how he's going to come back, is the Night's King does it. So, but I'm fuzzy on the details.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's possible. I don't know. I'm kind of doubting that, but you never know. Anything's possible. But I'm kind of leaning towards the direction that he doesn't actually die in this show. He just gets badly injured, and people think he's dead. But that I think that would upset
that would be
a
cop out. But.
All right. Okay, so we'll just move on to the next question, which I have a question from Jake the Snake, who asked, what do you think snapped in Dany's head to finally make her accept Jorah in the moment? And he also says, love your videos, keep up the great work.
Well, thank you. Oh, to me, it was obviously he was close to death. He was about to die, and then when you see somebody that you think you don't like anymore, or you're having an argument with or whatever, and you see them close to death, that will snap you right back into how much you really care for them. So I thought it was pretty straightforward, personally. As soon as she saw that he was about to die, when that guy was about to kill him, that's what snapped her back.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was more of a build-up. Like, that was building to it, but then the fact that he saved her life and killed the Harpy and was, like, protecting her was, like, that was the final snap. That was the topping on the, cherry on top.
Yeah.
But, yeah, a lot of people were sort of criticizing Jorah's decision to go into fighting puts, but it seemed like he had the right idea. Putting his life in peril was the way to get Dany to care about him again.
He was right, and I mean, and I was not one of those who criticized him. I thought, you know what, he knows he's going to die anyway, so what does he have to lose?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's just go for it.
Okay, so, all right, so you want to get to the final question?
Yeah, the final question. This comes from T. Gill. This was actually posted on Enchantment of Eternity's page, but we had to even out the questions. So the question is, with what was shown in next week's teaser, and given that we haven't seen in the books, what do you guys think we'll see at Winterfell? It seems that it's building to an epic, complicated battle in the books, one that can almost certainly not be squeezed into a small portion of one episode.
All right, so I'm really starting to think now, especially if you watch the promo for next week's episode, you see Stannis like with swords drawn with a huge army. So I think, like, similar to what you were saying about the Battle of Meereen, is that they might actually do it next episode, but it's going to be streamlined. It's going to be a much more condensed version. It's not going to be the epic battle that is panning out to be in the books. I had theories, and I said this in my prediction videos. The other crazy theories people were really against, but that sort of Brienne and Sansa will work from the inside and like weaken their position, and Stannis will just roll right in. Although I don't know about that, but I think maybe something's going to happen to make the battle be a bit simpler in the show.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a possibility. I'm wondering, though, about this epic battle in the snow that Melisandre saw in the flames and Stannis saw in the flames, like way back right after the Blackwater battle in Season 2. So if that's all it was kind of be like, that was it? That's what you saw in the flames? So, I mean, I'm not saying they won't do that, but it would be disappointing with all that build-up from, like, Season 2. Like, I think it needs to be something epic for that to have a kind of payoff.
Prophecies are vague, so the battle in snow, because originally I thought that was referring to the Stannis attacking the wildlings. So maybe it's not Winterfell. Maybe it's a battle with the White Walkers, a totally different battle altogether.
Yeah, it's true. Though they thought that it was Winterfell because they did refer to it a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, that's true. They did, but they could always be wrong.
Yeah. It is very true. And I actually wouldn't mind that because then that frees Melisandre to get back involved with Jon Snow's storyline, which I would like her to get back involved in that, even if she's not the one bringing him back to life.
Although I kind of think that if Stannis does get into Winterfell next episode and Brienne's there, then that's the end of Stannis. And other people, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to do the whole Chekhov thing again, because other people were talking about how the Brienne saying she wants to kill Chekhov was the sort of Chekhov death threat. That was the...
Yeah, you just said Brienne wants to kill Chekhov.
Stannis.
Yeah. Maybe she wants to kill Chekhov too because he's tired of all these Chekhov's references in all the Game of Thrones videos. Yeah. I definitely think it was Chekhov's death threat, but it doesn't mean it's going to be resolved in this season.
Yeah. That's.
What if it was? What if Brienne killed him next episode? I wouldn't. I mean, it would shock me. It would be surprising, but I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, you never know.
They did say we're expecting a lot of deaths that weren't in the books, and this would be a really big one. And after today's episode, or this week's episode, I think a lot of people would be okay with it.
And I'm on board with that. I even said that in my video. I'm now looking forward to Brienne killing him. Whereas before I was kind of conflicted. Like, I don't know, Stannis is, especially after the Shireen season or episode 4 scene, I'm like, oh, he's not a bad guy. But then it's like, now, yeah, I definitely would love to see Brienne kill him, but I don't think it's going to happen this season.
Some people even went as far to say that they hoped Ramsay defeated him. I'm like, no, I think that's pushing it a bit.
That's going a little. Ramsay's done a lot more. I mean, if he had a daughter to burn on the stake, he would have already burned, whatever daughters he would have, he would burn and torture, and he would do way worse things than burning them, actually. So, yeah, Ramsay's just way, 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 way worse.
All right, cool. So I think that's good for our Q&A session. So I'll just end this video here. Thanks a lot for watching. Make sure you check out both our channels and subscribe to keep up with all our other videos we'll be doing. And thanks a lot for watching.